round of gunfire moments ago at the scene of the barricaded gunman in West Bloomfield, where an officer was shot and killed overnight.
Let's get right to 7 Action News reporter Smitha Kaloki, who's been on the scene all morning. Smitha, did you just hear more gunfire?
Actually, we didn't, and I'm going to take a second just to see if we can hear a few more. It sounds like at this moment they've quieted down, but just seconds ago, right before we came back on air, we did hear a round of gunfire. Now, this is the third time this morning that we've heard it. The first, what sounded like gunshots came down around 8:33. Several rounds were fired at that time. Again at 8:37, and then you just heard it at 8:47. Now, at this time, police are not confirming if those were in fact gunshots. It is possible that it was also flashbang, a technique that officers use in situations like this where they have a barricaded gunman. Let's go back to 10 o'clock last night. That's when we were told that family members living in the 4,000 block of Forest Edge had called 911 asking for help. They were dealing with the domestic situation in their house. Now, when police officers arrived, the family members who had called for help were gone. They had been able to escape the house at that time. So 5 officers went into that house. They were shot upon immediately. We are told that the suspect was at the top of a staircase waiting with a rifle. That is when he fired shots, hitting one officer in the neck, killing that officer. Now, we have learned the name of that officer. However, out of respect for both his family and the department, we are withholding it at this time. We can tell you that he was a 12-year veteran of the force, a married man, a father of 4. He was taken to McLaren Hospital where he was pronounced dead. Now, again, we can tell you that this is a very dangerous and active scene. The shot that you're getting right now, the look that you're getting, you can see that there are several police agencies down the road here on Pontiac Trail. They have been here all night long. We've been here with them. They've been in most of a holding pattern as far as we could tell from over here. But again, just minutes ago at 8:33, beginning at that time, since then we have heard 3 rounds of what were believed to be possibly gunshots or maybe flashbang. Again, sources are telling us that these police officers did send in a robot earlier, and that the suspect at that time had been firing rounds and shots back towards them. So guys, we are dealing with a very active situation. We are again waiting on confirmation from West Bloomfield Police as to what exactly we are hearing out here. But as far as we know, we can tell you a West Bloomfield police officer, a 12-year veteran of the force, has been killed, and a gunman has kept police at bay since 10 o'clock last night.
Smitha, I'm curious, how close are you being allowed to be near the scene right here? Because when we did hear what appeared to be, or at least sounded like the gunshot, or what you were talking about, the flashbangs, it sounded like it was pretty close to where you're standing.
I believe that we're about a half a mile away from the actual situation. Forest Edge is on the south side. I'm at the north side of Pontiac Trail. Across the street going down that way, that is where Forest Edge is. We should also mention that there are other homes in that area. Possibly as many as 18 houses are actually on that street. All of those houses were evacuated last night, so we do not believe at this time that there was any threat to residents living in that area.
All right, Smitha, and obviously you've seen so many officers in that area. You can only imagine the devastation on their faces, I'm sure you can tell.
Anu, I spoke to the chief himself over the phone this morning, and you can just hear it in his voice, and talking to not just police officers out here, but firefighters. You know, these guys, they work closely together. West Bloomfield Police Department, rather, has maybe about 70 officers who are on the street. It's a tight-knit group out here, and you can just tell that they are feeling the loss this morning. I mean, they've lost one of their own, and at the same time trying to deal with this situation so that nobody else is hurt. It's a difficult morning, to say the very least.
Yeah, Smitha, you were telling us that you yourself heard at least what sounded like gunshots 3 different times today, 8:33, 8:37, and at 8:47. We're going to let our viewers hear some of the sound that we actually heard and were able to record earlier today.
And that was the sound of that, what appears to be gunfire just moments ago at the scene in West Bloomfield, again, where a 12-year veteran of the force was shot and killed overnight. Smitha, tell us again, there were several officers that arrived at that house in response to a call from some family members?
That's right. There were 5 officers. Once they got onto scene, 5 officers actually were on the scene. They made their way into the house. All 5 of them went inside. However, after those shots were fired, they were forced to retreat. And again, before they retreated, though, they were able to recover the officer's body, and he was taken to McLaren Hospital in Pontiac, where he was pronounced dead.
Smitha, do we know about a plan that police have allowed you to know yet? Have they tried to send anybody else into the home since they were ambushed when they went into the house? Have they tried to use any of their devices to go into the house to kind of get a survey of what may be inside?
In terms of actually going inside of the house, it's undetermined right now. You know, West Bloomfield police are keeping under wraps for obvious reasons. They want to keep their own guys safe at this time. But we are being told by sources that they did use a robot. That robot was fired upon by the suspect. So we do know that the suspect is alive. At least that was coming before 8:30, before those first round of shots or flashbang were fired. As far as we know, we do not believe that additional officers have entered the home at this time, but that is unlimited information, and we're still awaiting confirmation from police.
And Smitha, we know that we have learned the identity of this officer who was shot and killed there. We are not releasing it out of respect to the family of the officer as well as the police department. But what have you been able to learn about the officer?
You know, he was a well-loved, well-liked officer. He was here with the force for 12 years, a married man, a father of 4. You can just imagine what they're all going through this morning. I mean, to know that he was killed in the line of fire and honorably, it's heartbreaking.
Smitha, we want you to stay with us here real quick if you can. We do have some sound from the township supervisor there in West Bloomfield on this horrendous act that has taken place. Here's what the township supervisor had to say.
We just had a report from the police chief that the county is sending an armored vehicle to the home where the incident occurred to try to draw out and escalate the situation.
What are you doing for the folks here at the township hall to kind of make this a little bit easier for them?
Yes, we've been trying to keep them comfortable all evening. We evacuated nearby residents at about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I've lost track, but we've had about 30 residents here at Town Hall. Salvation Army brought in food, ice, water, and we've been trying to make them comfortable in our cafeteria break room and in our boardroom with a TV to get the updates.
Just realize that something happens all the often. Talk about.
And we want to make sure our viewers know that we got that interview with the township supervisor before we heard that barrage of what appeared to be gunfire in that neighborhood.
And that's where we sit right now. Smitha Kaloki is live at the scene where this incident has been going on. If you're just joining us, apparently from 10 o'clock last night when some very concerned family members called police on a 911 call. Smitha, I'm curious, of the people who were evacuated in the neighborhood, as we just heard the township supervisor talking about, have any of them become available for comment? Do we know anything about this man who is holding police at bay? Anything from the neighbors at all about who he is, what he's about?
You know, at this time, Vic, my information out here is very limited. As you can tell, they are keeping us quite a distance from that neighborhood for very obvious reasons, including safety. However, I can tell you that our crew is also at the township hall where some of those residents have gone for evacuation. I understand that our crew has also spoken to some of them. We expect to hear more from them during later editions of Action News.
And Smitha, do we have any information on what those family members told police when they called them last night?
Right now, they're not giving out that information new. All they're willing to say is that this seems to be a domestic situation of sorts. For whatever reason, obviously, these family members felt that their lives were threatened. They felt insecure. They called 911. They knew they needed help, and they were smart enough to get out of harm's way and just get to safety as soon as possible. And that, again, happened before police even arrived. So when police arrived on scene and went into that home, nobody was in there except for the gunman.
Yeah, and we'd like to let people in on some of the sound that we were able to capture there. You and Anu were there. Anu, we had Smitha there at the scene. Obviously, you told us 3 different times, loud, long, what appears to be sounds of gunfire or flashbangs. Here's a little example of what we were able to record there at the scene. Once again, Smitha telling sound right there, which is just bizarre in itself, hearing that go on and on and on. 3 different times happening at 8:33 a.m., 8:37 a.m., and 8:47 a.m. near the area where the gunman has barricaded himself inside the home.
And Smitha, describe for us what you're seeing happen right now.
You know what's interesting, and that's actually what's why we're not sure if that was gunfire or flashbang, is that if you look behind me, most of the police officers are in a holding pattern. When we heard all the 3 times at 8:33, 8:37, 8:47, we never saw officers from here jump into a stance which would make us think that they needed to, you know, protect themselves or that they have their guns drawn or anything like that. So out here, we are seeing that police appear to be in somewhat of a holding situation. Again, this street is on the south side of Pontiac Trail.
Stay updated with you for live reports on the scene from West Bloomfield.